Welcome back inside the Bear Zone, this time for our special Big Sky Conference basketball tournament preview show.
That's right, we're dedicating a full half hour to breaking down each of the 14 total teams that made the Field of 7. We welcome in two experts. We'll introduce you to them in a few minutes to help us analyze this next weekend.
We're going to get started right now and take a look at the brackets after this commercial. Let's go. The brackets first before we introduce our panel of experts to you. So let's go ahead and take a look at the men's bracket. In the first game, we're looking at Weber State and North Dakota first. That's the 2-7 matchup. That starts the quarterfinals this Thursday, March 14th. The second game will be North Dakota, the 3 seed, will visit Southern Utah, the 5 seed, also in the quarterfinals. And to finish off the quarterfinals, your UNC Bears will take on the Montana State Bobcats, who currently hold the 4th seed. Now, the winner of that game will go face the number 1 seed Montana Grizzlies in the semifinals. And the lowest seed will face Montana, and the 2 highest seeds will face each other in the semifinals. The winner of those 2 games will face each other in the championship game at 7 o'clock on Saturday, March 16th. That game will be on ESPNU. Now, on the women's side, we're looking at the first game, Northern Colorado and Southern Utah at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. You can see that highlighted in the center of your screen right there. The second quarterfinals game, Eastern Washington and Montana State in the 3-6 game. And in the 4-5 game, I have Idaho State and Sacramento State finishing off the quarterfinals. Now, same as in the men's division, the lowest seed will go face the first-seeded Montana Grizzlies. The 2 highest seeds will face each other in the semifinals. The championship game will be on BigSkyTV.com, as will all of the games, at 2 p.m. on Saturday. All right, now that we have that, let's introduce to you finally our experts, Michael Nowels from the UNC Mirror and Ryan Pfeifer from the Sports Information Office. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Well, let's go ahead and let's dive right in. Let's talk about the first game on the men's side, the Weber State and the NAU game. What can you tell us to watch for in that game?
Well, Weber State is second seeded. They've been pretty successful this year. They're actually leading in both scoring offense and scoring defense. So they've scored the most points, given up the fewest. They're a really strong team, pretty well balanced offensively. Fife, what do you think about them?
Definitely. I mean, Weber's big-time favorite in this game. NAU did take Weber to overtime at NAU, though, so it's a little different playing in Montana now, neutral site. Mm-hmm. But Gabe Rogers has to go off for Northern Arizona to have any chance in this game. He's their leading scorer, actually leads the Big Sky in scoring, too. So if he has a huge game, they might have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you guys just talk a little bit about Weber State? One player on the team, Davian Barry, who, he transferred. He's just like our Derek Barden, and, he's made quite an impression for Weber State, and as well as Scott Bamforth. Can you guys talk just a little bit about those 2 players and just how much of an impact they've made on Weber State?
Yeah, they're 2 of their 3 top scorers. They've been they've really added to the depth scoring on that team. Bamforth is a leader for them. He's been there for a few years now, and he's got some swagger that we here at UNC may not appreciate too much, but he's got it, and that's a personality that's important on a team if you want to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Barry's their top player. He's been all year for them, came in, transferred. He's their top player. He's going to lead that team. But Bamforth, since he's come in as a freshman, he was known as a shooter. And as Coach Hill has said throughout the year, when Northern Colorado played him, he's transformed from just being a shooter to now he's a complete player. He plays both defense, offense very well. And both Barry and Bamforth are tough on both ends, not just the offensive end.
Guys, we've got Frank Otis. He was all-conference honorable mention. He's a forward, and Kyle Tresnak, he's a center, true center, 6'10". The center position is something that's really kind of a dying art in basketball. How does this give them an edge in this game?
Well, anytime you have size, you can really bully someone. You get that ball inside, and you can either get it to the bucket and just back him down, or you can kick it out. Once you control that paint area offensively, it gives you options. You can play from inside out. And then defensively, it's very important, obviously, as well in protecting the bucket.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and not a lot of teams in the Big Sky have a true center, so that's a huge advantage for Weber. And, yeah, NAU is a smaller team. They like to play 4 guards at times, which they can use that advantage of being against Weber and try to use their quickness against their size.
Now we're talking about games that we need these teams to lose. Weber State, another one we need to lose is North Dakota to get good seeding in the semifinals. Now, just talk about, they're newcomer to the conference, but they've also turned a lot of heads. Kind of break them down.
Definitely, yeah. North Dakota, first year in the conference, but they played a lot of Big Sky teams in previous seasons, so they knew what they were coming into. They weren't just coming in blind, having no clue about these schools. They have a lot of size. They have 8 kids over 6'7", so they're going to be very tough to score on inside. You better be making your baskets on the outside, making threes, extending their defense. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time getting inside on them.
Yeah, another way to beat that size is to run. Make sure, bigger guys can't move those big legs as fast. So make sure you get out on the break, capitalize on turnovers really, and that's an important part. But as you mentioned and as we were talking about before, that size inside really makes it hard getting to the cup and putting that ball in the hoop.
So, guys, North Dakota plays Southern Utah next, and Southern Utah is new to the Big Sky this year. And so can you just talk about the overall performance that they've had and the North Dakota and the Southern Utah game that's coming up?
Definitely. I mean, everyone coming into the season, North Dakota was expected to make this tournament. They did have high hopes of making the tournament. They've played a few of the Big Sky teams earlier in the year and last season. So everyone knew what they had coming in. Southern Utah, not as much, not as many Big Sky teams had played them. Maybe Weber and I know NAU had played them. But other than that, they were really unknown for the most part. Both these schools split their games earlier this year, winning both at home. So neutral site, who knows? It's going to be a toss-up. But the game's probably going to be one between the battle of the guards. Both teams have really good guards going against each other. So whoever can dictate that pace will be really interesting to see.
You mentioned that they split the season series, but you look at the top 3 teams in the Big Sky, and those are the only teams that had winning records in the Big Sky. So Southern Utah, I believe they won 6 games in the Big Sky. It's you take care of home court, but then you have to go on the road here. It's a different dynamic when you're in a tournament. Anything can happen, but those teams below 500, they're going to have to jump up to really get somebody.
We got to jump out to a break here pretty quick, but I wanted to ask you guys, is it really a surprise that Southern Utah, you mentioned North Dakota was expected to make this field, but is it really a surprise that Southern Utah made this field?
A little bit. I mean, they just barely made it in. On the last day, they had to win their last game to make it in. So they really were a surprise, but they were surprised that they made it, but not completely. They were in about the 8th spot in the preseason rankings. So other than that, it's not a huge surprise.
All right, let's jump out for our first break. We'll be right back with the rest of the field of the Big Sky Tournament right after this.
Welcome back to this special tournament preview. So right now we are going to talk about the team that everybody on the UNC campus wants to talk about, and that's Montana State, who is the first team that we play in this tournament. So guys, real quick, just to talk about Montana State overall. They're the first team that we play for this tournament, and they've been playing on our level all season. So can you just talk a little bit about how they've been playing at our level?
Yeah, anytime you have the 2 seeds that match up right next to each other, that's always an interesting to match up in any tournament, whether that's NCAA or NFL, whatever tournament you're in. That's a key matchup. But I think they have kind of taken a bit of a downturn, whereas UNC's really turned it on lately. Montana State hasn't had that same uptick that UNC has had this particular towards the end of the year here. Definitely.
I mean, you look at the stats, both teams average about 70 points a game, give up around 71, so very even right there. Both games were relatively close at the end at Montana State. Northern Colorado was able to pull away, win by 13. But the first game here in Greeley, the Bears were unable to hold on to the lead late, and Montana State was able to pull away with a 3-point win.
Guys, the Bobcats only have 2 players on the all-conference list, and neither of them placed higher than the honorable mention. And Flavian Davis, he's a forward. Christian Moon, he's a guard. 6'5" and 6'2", they're listed at. They really don't have a whole lot of star power, while a team like UNC will bring in Derek Barton, they'll bring in Tate Unruh, they'll bring in Tevin Sajhovic, and not to mention the centers that could play. So what in the matchup do you see? Is there a mismatch there?
I would say probably if you have Derek Barton's, he's going to probably be able to get to the glass and get his. You know, it's interesting to try to match up a team. You look at that. It's a basketball team, and it's not about stars. Like much like the Pistons of the early 2000s and the Nuggets right now, in their success, it's a team concept, and I think that's pretty interesting to try to match up against.
Definitely. I mean, Montana State might not have the stars, but they're definitely a team. But with that team, they rely a lot on their starters. You look at the minutes and the scoring, a lot of it comes from their starters. They only had one bench player above 5 points for the whole year average. So that'll be a really interesting matchup. See, you got Paul Garnica coming off the bench. He's going to be your big scorer for Northern Colorado. Hopefully, that's what you're looking for with him coming off the bench, giving you a spark. That could be really where this game is won with how even these teams are.
All right, guys, so what do you think the overall key is to this game for UNC?
I would say it's their ability to play together as a team. You know, let the stars shine, certainly, but in the end, if Montana State is a team, obviously just mostly their starters, but is team focused, UNC needs to have that not I'm going to get mine mentality. They've got to play together cohesively. Definitely.
That's important in playing cohesively on the defensive end. That's going to be huge. Getting on those boards, not allowing those second opportunities. And I think the tournament's in Montana. It's only a couple hours drive from Bozeman to Missoula. So they're probably going to be facing a road crowd in that game. It is earlier in the day. That might help. But otherwise, it's going to be a tough matchup.
Guys, what about the fact that UNC has the late game in this one? They tip off at 8 o'clock, and it might be a usual start time, but do you think seeing other teams go first, do you think that wears down on them any, or they don't have time for a normal game routine like a shoot-around or anything before the actual a regular game routine is what I'm talking about. Does that play into it at all?
I would say every team's got to face that. You know, whether the earlier games, they'll have a little bit more time to prepare. Or the earliest game will have that time. They won't have a game going on before them, but you know they're playing at 1:30 in the afternoon or 11 in the morning, or so that's a challenge in and of itself. I think that routine of being able to come into a night game is pretty important for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean it could possess some challenge, but I think most of it might be the winner of this game playing the next day. That's where the challenge could come, and you're not going to have as much time as the first two teams who played earlier in the day will have to prepare for the next opponent.
All right, now let's switch gears from Montana State and talk about Montana. They are 19-1 in the Big Sky, and the only team that has beaten them is Weber State. Can you guys, what do you think it is about Montana that makes them so good?
I mean, they returned a lot from last year's NCAA team. That's the first part of it. You have Will Cherry back again. Two-time Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. So he's going to shut your top guard down, your top scorer. That's what they're going to put him on, is your top scorer as long as he's not a big. They also have Kareem Jammer, who was the Big Sky MVP this year. So they can score a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, you have a guy like Will Cherry, you have Kareem Jamar, but they're missing their top scorer at the beginning of the year. You know, Will Cherry was hurt with a foot injury, broken foot earlier in the year. Now he's come back, and they actually feared that he had broken it again. But their top scorer also went down recently in February with a broken foot. So maybe they need to, maybe there's something in the water there on the ground that they keep stepping on and end up hurting their feet. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking about Matthias Ward there, so that really hurts their depth inside. He's their only real big. Otherwise, they're really young inside, and that could hurt them.
We'll get to predictions a little later on in the show, but they ran away with the conference this year. Rachel said it was 19-1. The only team to beat them was Weber. Do you expect them to run the table in this tournament?
We'll see. That loss. We'll see where Will Cherry is at. Weber still has the top scoring differential, top scoring offense, top scoring defense. It seems like two teams that are really dominating the league in two different ways, and it's interesting that they're both able to do that and still look so dominant in that.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to dominate this tournament like they did the regular season without Ward. It's going to be a lot harder inside if you go up against bigger teams. But otherwise, they're definitely going to play well on the defensive end. That's where they make their mark, is on the defensive end.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have to talk about Montana. We'll be back to talk about the rest of the matchups, but first we got to jump out and take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. This is a special tournament preview show presented by Bear Zone on Channel 98. Welcome back to the tournament preview special presented by Bear Zone on Channel 98. Let's switch gears and talk about the women. We just finished up talking about the men. First matchup we're going to talk about is the 3-6 matchup between Eastern Washington and Montana State. Guys, what do you have to tell us about that one?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you need to know is Eastern's a very hot team coming into this tournament. They've won 11 of their last 14 games, which momentum, that's what you want at this time of the year. You want the momentum on your side, being able to know you're playing your best ball now, going into March, into the crunch time, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's what we talked about with the UNC men's team. They're hot now. Same with the Eastern Washington women. You know, that's a huge key going into March. You also look at Montana State's team. They're a little undersized. We'll see how well Eastern Washington is able to exploit that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Montana State only has 1 or 2 girls over 6'2", so that's going to be an interesting matchup. Definitely for Carrie Oha of Eastern Washington. She was one of the Big Sky all-conference players, so it'll be interesting. She's about 6'4", see how she can take advantage of that matchup inside.
Definitely.
Guys, how about I wanted to ask you about Haley Hodgins. She's a newcomer, Big Sky Newcomer of the Year from Eastern Washington, and she lit up the conference. How can she take that momentum from the regular season and transfer it into the tournament?
Well, you know, it's exactly like the team. You know, it's about keeping that momentum going, and when you're a newcomer, you're learning how to play within a conference, and you know, you jump into a conference like the Big Sky with teams that are pretty solidified. It's impressive for someone to come in, take over Newcomer of the Year, and carry your team into the conference tournament with teams that are, you know, you've got Montana, you've got UNC, you've got Idaho State is 3 teams that are strong year in and year out.
Definitely. I mean, she was able to gel real quickly with this team, and be able to come in and contribute right away was a huge step for them to make this tournament and make the steps, getting real hot at the end too.
Absolutely.
Can you guys just do a quick recap on the defense of both teams?
Yeah, I mean, you see Montana State's going to be scrappy. They're going to be out there putting some press out there, definitely with their size, use their quickness. That's what they're going to want to do, being undersized, take advantage of their quickness.
Exactly. So the key for Eastern Washington at that point is going to be to stop those small players for Montana State, and really, you know, keep them out of the paint. Don't let them get those layups. Keep them to shooting outside jumpers, which, you know, even if that's your game, that's harder than a layup.
Definitely. And I mean, Eastern Washington's going to want to take advantage of their size inside.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the 4-5 matchup, Idaho State and Sac State. Kylie Coons, Fantasia Hillard, they've both been really, really, really solid for Sacramento State. Talk about this matchup.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Kylie Coons, one of the top 3-point shooters in the Big Sky. That's what a lot of Sacramento State's offense is about, is shooting that 3, getting it going. They like to get up and down the court. The more possessions, the better. That's how they feel about it. They want to get a quick turnover. They trap most of the game. They want to get that quick turnover, turn it into points, get the good looks quickly.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting look. You see teams trying to get out on that transition, and I think with smaller teams especially, that's really important. But you also look at Idaho State. You know, they were dominant last year. UNC came up just short in the conference tournament, up in Pocatello. This is, I mean, the number 4 seed isn't exactly what they were looking for this year, but they're still going to be hungry to make it back to the NCAA tournament.
Definitely not. I mean, Idaho State came in as the preseason favorite, so they didn't live up to the expectations they wanted to have, but they still have a lot of senior leadership with both Lindsay Reed and Lindsay Oakes, both back this year, so they have a lot of senior leadership that should help against this trap that Sacramento State's going to want to put on them.
Absolutely.
All right, let's switch gears, talk about Idaho State a little. They're the defending Big Sky champs. They won the tournament over UNC by 3 points last year. Now, talk about Ashley Villa and Kayla Oakes. They returned for this team, make it very potent offensive-wise.
Yeah, I mean, not as potent offensive-wise as offensively as Sacramento State, but who is in the conference? Obviously, they're running and gunning. But as you mentioned, that senior leadership is key for this team. You know, they've been there, they've done that, they know how to win. So they need to continue going on that path.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we said earlier, that senior leadership is going to be huge for them and leading them towards another Big Sky championship. I think, and for them, I think a big part of it with that senior leadership, they can tell the younger players, hey, let's relax. The pressure from being the favorites off now. Let's move on, get to the tournament. We won it last year. We know what it takes. Let's take that step again this year.
All right, we're going to jump to a quick break, but right afterwards, we're going to talk about the UNC Southern Utah game. Come right back with us on Channel 98 with Bear Zone.
Welcome back to the special tournament preview presented by Bear Zone on Channel 98. Let's jump out now. We welcome back in Michael Nowels and Ryan Pfeifer. Let's talk about the UNC Southern Utah game. It's the game everybody's talking about on campus. This team, the UNC team, they're number 2 in the conference, expected by some to actually win the conference, but Southern Utah pulling a bit of an upset. Talk about this matchup.
I mean, yeah, hopefully the third time's the charm. 0-2 right now for UNC against Southern Utah. So hopefully that's really a big thing. Is it's going to be tough to beat a team 3 times. Definitely 3 times within less than 3 weeks. I think that's a huge thing right there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that's they've played them twice in pretty rapid succession. That high pressure defense that Southern Utah was throwing at UNC earlier in the season really messed with them. And UNC has struggled throughout the year with the press defense. I talked to Coach Jamie White about it. She said that they just run their same normal stuff, which is, to keep the players comfortable. They just need to be looking for those cuts and those gaps that you can find in the defense to make their regular offense more successful in that.
Definitely, and I think what you saw with Southern Utah that really gave the UNC offense a lot of fits was the 2-3 zone. And if you look at the stats this year, yeah, UNC is not doing that well shooting outside from the 3. So it's good. That 2-3 zone's forcing you. They want you to take those shots. So you need to share a strange to penetrate, kick it out, and get some ball movement. That's going to be big to beat this zone.
Make sure you fill a person's zone. If you want to beat the zone, you can overload one person's zone to get them out of position. I think that's important. Make those short, quick passes, not bounce passes, not lobs, but make a short, quick pass, get it to the hoop.
You guys talked about shooting the 3, so how do you think we can better defend their 3 on this matchup?
I think, when UNC plays its zone, which is the Buzz 2-1-2, they're able to get out on those the 3s at the top of the key pretty easily. You have players already set up there. But once you get below to the wing and down towards the baseline, it's harder to get out on that. They need to make sure that they extend their zone, which is part of what the Buzz does is the press. Make sure that you increase that offensive anxiety. But they have to get out to those corner 3s, definitely.
Definitely. I mean, Southern Utah is not just the best Big Sky shooting team from 3, but they are one of the top teams in the nation. So that's something you definitely, that's the scouting report right there on their offense. Get out on their 3s. You have to stop them. If you can stop that, they don't have the greatest size. Neither does UNC. But if you can stop those 3s, that's going to help you a long ways.
Having covered the game here, what I noticed a lot was that they don't really have that inside presence. But in the game here, UNC kept trying to get back into it, and it seemed that every time they made a couple buckets in a row, Southern Utah would be able to go down and hit a big 3 to kind of stop that run that UNC was making. So don't get behind against the 3-point shooting team. And if you are ahead, they're still dangerous.
Guys, behind Haley Mandelko from Southern Utah, the Southern Utah team doesn't really have a whole lot of star power, especially in the conference awards that was announced on Monday. Lauren Osdike, second team all-conference. Deshara Strange, first team all-conference. Do they have the staying power? I mean, this team is under 500 in Big Sky play. Do they have the star power to pull a 3rd victory in, Ryan, you said it, less than 3 weeks?
Well, hopefully not. But they definitely, I mean, they can hit those 3s. They penetrate, and then they kick it back out to Haley, and she's really good from the three, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a shooter and they have multiple shooters, you're always going to have a chance when they're hot, especially against, if they've beaten UNC twice and, pretty much controlled the game here at Butler Hancock, they've got something that's hard for UNC to cover. So it'll be interesting to see how UNC can try some new things in this conference game.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. That game, obviously, we'll have our eyes on. But let's talk about Montana, dominant in the conference, just like their counterparts on the men's side. They win the conference. They get the right to host. They've got very influential players. Katie Baker, MVP. What's the scouting report on this team?
Definitely. I mean, you have Katie Baker, the MVP for the women's side this year. We also have Kenzie DeBoer, who was their other big scorer. But I think the key to even stopping Montana is slowing down Tori Hill. She almost averages 5 assists per game. So she's really good about dishing it out, getting everyone involved, starting that ball movement that they really use to get defenses off.
Absolutely. A big's not going to take the ball down the floor. Katie Baker, DeBoer, they're not going to take the ball down the floor. Someone's got to get in the spaces and get them the ball in a spot that they're comfortable. So you're right. Tori Hill is a key cog in this machine that oftentimes goes overlooked.
Definitely.
If we can just focus a little bit on Katie Baker, she was awarded as the Player of the Year. Can you just talk about how much of an influence she's been for Montana this season?
I mean, senior leadership right there, that's huge. So she has experience. She knows what it's going to be like going through the league. The tough road trips, it's not easy to go all the way to North Dakota, then fly here, then go home to Montana for a few days, and then go over to Portland State, Eastern Washington. So she's able, both on the court and off the court, to lead this team.
Yeah, when you've got a bigger player like that, it's kind of hard to have that. It's interesting to have that a big be that MVP player, but it just shows how much senior leadership she has and what she's able to do as a bigger player without the ball.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have to talk about Montana. We'll see how that one pans out, too. It'll be interesting. But right now we have to jump out for another commercial break. Come on right back with us to the Tournament Preview Special presented by Bearzone on Channel 98. Welcome back to the Tournament Preview Special presented by Bearzone on Channel 98. Let's talk about we've talked about the matchups. Let's talk about the influence that this will have on the NCAA tournament. Mike, I know you have some very strong opinions about this, so I'm going to toss it right to you.
Yeah, it's interesting to have it be a one-bid league. This is really the one chance that these seniors have to go out. Obviously, you can go out on a positive note without winning the conference tournament, but it's kind of it's an interesting position for the seniors to be put in, I would say, with either you win or you're done playing and you didn't reach your goal, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the NCAA tournament's that's what you want. That's the big goal of any team out there. You want to make it to the tournament. Once you make it there, anything can happen. So with that, though, I think you look at the teams for the women's side, definitely everyone loves their bracketology. So, yeah.
Especially you.
Definitely. So you look at it for the women's side, I mean, any team that wins it, they're probably going to be a 16 seed. So you're not going to get the greatest matchup. Hopefully you avoid Baylor. Don't want to go up against Brittany Griner and all that.
No, thank you.
No, but so maybe a 15 depending on some upsets if you're a higher seed. So that'll help. And then on the men's side, both Montana and Weber could be higher than a 16. We've seen some early upsets in these one-bid leagues already. So that's going to help elevate some of these Big Sky teams. So Weber and Montana could go as high as a 14 seed. That gives them somewhat of a shot. But anyone else in the Big Sky for the men's side being a 16 and possibly going to Dayton for one of those first 4 games.
Yeah, probably. Especially you see a team like Liberty already made the tournament and they're under 500 still. So they're certainly going to be in Dayton for that first 4 mini tournament.
All right, guys, so this is obviously the last shot for the seniors that we have on our team. So can you just talk about how this is, their final shot going to the NCAA, just how much of an impact that is on them?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you hear the girls talk about it all year since there's no seniors on the guys' team. They actually do have another shot. But for the girls, you always hear Victoria and Lauren and Hannah talk about, this is it. They lost by 2 points last year in the final game in the Big Sky Championship. So they were right there. They tasted it. They knew what it was like. They know what it means to almost be there. They want to get past that finish line and get there. You hear it. That's been driving them all year. And you can see it for not just the seniors. The other girls want to do it for the seniors. That's a big motivation for all the team, not just the seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, after the Southern Utah game, we were doing interviews, and Lauren Osdike, you know, you could tell that it was really wearing on her. Even to lose a little bit of positioning in the Big Sky tournament is huge. So you can win one loss in the regular season, affecting where you're going to be, affects someone so much. You can only imagine how much they care about winning the conference tournament now.
Definitely with this being, this is it. The conference tournament is at the regular season winner's site. So that helps a lot for that #1 seed.
Well, having motivation, like losing in last year's Big Sky tournament and losing the right to host against Southern Utah, definitely a lot of motivation for this team. Let's jump out for one more commercial break. We'll come back real quick. We'll wrap it up with predictions with these guys. We'll be right back. This is Tournament Preview Special on Bear Zone. Yeah. Well, guys, we have time for one more quick segment. We're going to look at predictions. Let's go game by game. First off, we're going to start on the men. Weber State, NAU. Take it away.
Weber State, they're the dominant team. They're definitely one of the top teams in this conference. I don't think NAU might keep it close for a while, but for the most part, Weber's going to run away with this, I think. Yeah,
Weber's the top challenger to Montana at this point, so Weber's probably, they got a good shot at winning that game.
All right, what about North Dakota and Southern Utah? What do you guys think?
I'm going to go with North Dakota here. They've got that size that's really going to be an issue for Southern Utah in this game.
Definitely. I mean, a matchup with the two new members, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle the tournament and it being in Montana. But I go with North Dakota, too. That size is going to be tough to handle.
All right, the game everybody wants to know on campus, Montana State, UNC. This one's going to be close.
It will be close. You know, these are two pretty evenly matched teams, as we've talked about. We got to keep faith in the Bears, though, and I think they're going to pull it out. They're hot right now, and they do have that star power. I think Derek Barton's going to be an X factor.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be a real close game. Montana State's basically going to have the home crowd with the tournament being at Montana. But I think the Bears, I mean, they already went into Bozeman once this year and won, so I think they can do it again. Be a late three probably from Tatum Roof, something like that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
Speaking of Montana, who do you think has the best chance against them?
It's got to be Weber. As much as, you know, we'd love to see UNC do it, it's got to be Weber. They're a very strong team this year.
Definitely, it's Weber. You look at the standings from the regular season, it is Weber, Montana, and then everyone else, so it's definitely Weber.
All right, let's jump to the sorry, Rachel. Let's jump to the women's side. Let's go Eastern Washington, Montana State. Who do you guys got?
You know, Eastern Washington, Montana State, interesting matchup. I think I'm going to take Montana State in this one. You know, we'll see, though. It'll be close.
Definitely. It should be a real good game. I think Eastern's size is going to get them in the end, Eastern Washington.
Okay, your first disagreement.
All right, now what about Idaho State and Sac State? What do you guys think?
Idaho State's going to get run a little bit by Sac State. We'll see if that works. I think their senior leadership and their drive to continue winning and make up for last year will help them there.
Definitely, I think the finishing fourth in the conference and not meeting those expectations is going to help fuel Idaho State, and I'm going to take Idaho State in that game.
The game everybody wants to know on campus, UNC, Southern Utah. This one's a big one.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be interesting. UNC's, I think, gonna draw a lot of fire from those two previous losses to Southern Utah. They're going to be determined to win this game. I think this would, if they end up making it to the championship, then this is their hardest game before the championship. But I believe that UNC will be able to pull this one out.
Definitely. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mental roadblock at first, seeing Southern Utah, knowing they've got them third time in less than 3 weeks, seeing what's happened. But I think that's the motivation, and UNC wins.
All right, and the #1 seed Montana, who do you guys think has the best shot against them?
I'm going to go UNC. Yeah, they have the tough first game, but they split earlier in the season. So I'm going to go UNC. They have the size. They really match up very well with Montana.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go with UNC as well. They were able in the first matchup to really shut down Katie Baker, hold her to fewer than 10 points, I believe, and they were very successful against her. But it will be a good matchup if that ends up happening.
All right, well, it's been a lot of fun, guys, but we are out of time. Let's go ahead and just, we were going to take a look at the brackets. We're running a little over time, but we just want to thank you for joining us, and we will have all the results as they happen on Bear Sports, Facebook page, and right here on Bear News and Bear Zone.
Thanks for watching. Good night.